Hello, everybody. My name is CarlosX360 or Carlos Morales. Either way is the same. We're gonna do a video review of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's available for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. I played both versions of the game, and this review back here is for PlayStation 5. This is a like a storyline before the review of PlayStation 5, which I'm gonna do in the next video. For now, I'm gonna set the story, set the stage, so that the review makes sense in that context. So this is gonna be the context for the next video. Okay, so this is not the first Final Fantasy review done on this website. The last review was Final Fantasy 16, and I thought it is a hidden gem. Let me see. So I won't bore you with the history lesson about Final Fantasy so far. I will mention that Final Fantasy VII sold 14.4 million copies worldwide. It was a PlayStation exclusive, and that's how, people bought it, There's a whole nother story about that. I'm gonna get to that later, but for now, just alright. This review is going to focus on the remake of Final Fantasy VII, hence the name Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's important to mention that while I played Final Fantasy VII, this review is going to assume that you are a casual, as in you've never played Final Fantasy, you've never played Final Fantasy VII, you've never, that kind of thing, okay? I'm going to assume that you've never played Final Fantasy or any iterations of Final Fantasy VII. When going into Final Fantasy VII Remake, I want you to understand that I'm going in as a casual, no preconceived notions, nothing. So this is not like, oh, I'm biased about Final Fantasy. No, this is gonna be purely for you guys, okay? Alright. Square Enix initially released Final Fantasy VII Remake for PlayStation 4 shortly afterwards for PlayStation 5 and PC. There are rumors of a Xbox Series port, but I don't think we'll see it. I'll leave the review here on this blog/website in case it does. We clear? Good. Let's get started with this review. So, this is not technically this is not a section, but nonetheless, I will need to talk about it, because a lot of people are sleeping on it. Technically, Final Fantasy VII Remake is not a cross-gen game. Oh, no. And no. Alright, Final Fantasy VII Remake by itself runs pretty well on PlayStation 4, but the large issue is that Final Fantasy VII Remake comes in 2 full discs. So, in other words, one of it is the play disc, and the other one is the install disc. So you need to install the game first before you play the game. Okay? And on PlayStation 4, it had at least 100 gigabytes. I'll get into this, okay? The large issue is that Final Fantasy VII Remake, I got that. If you've installed Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation 4, you're going to install 100 plus gigabytes of files. From here, the game plays pretty well, but the game doesn't technically run at 60 frames per second locked. It has like valleys and dips. So it goes up, down, up, down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And when there's hiccups, you can see the frame rate artifacts. Like me going like this or like this. You see that? You should see artifacts even in this video. Okay? Okay, so it runs with dips in frame rates here and there. The frames move. The way the frames move, you'd feel like it's playing at 50 frames with slight ghosting. However, if you want to play the Final Fantasy, if you want to play the real Final Fantasy VII Remake, you feel like it playing that. That's not what it. Jeez, move this up a little bit. Let me. Okay. However, if you want to play the real Final Fantasy VII Remake, you need to buy a PlayStation 5 version, which is not in circulation currently. It sold pretty well, pretty poorly, because of the way it was released. The PlayStation 5 version is actually known as Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate. So it's like a separate game from the actual game. So it has like DLC. It has all the upgrades, all that kind of stuff. I'll talk about it a little bit more here. Same goes for the PC version. If you do a search for Final Fantasy, the first result for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I use Final Fantasy, and that's what it brings up for me. That said, if you want to play the PlayStation 5 version, you'll need to look for it. On the PlayStation 5 store, search Final Fantasy, and a bunch of Final Fantasy games will come up. This includes Final Fantasy VII Remake. Go to Final Fantasy VII listing and make sure it has the PlayStation 5 icon on it. Do not download it yet. Look for three dots button. It should bring up a few products. It will now bring you to the following screen. So here, there's a bunch of options, okay? It has a bunch of options. So Final Fantasy VII Remake Upgrade for PlayStation 4 version owners. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate Deluxe Digital Deluxe Edition. Sorry about that. Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is what you'll download if you do it the previous page. Okay, which is why I said don't download it yet. Come to this screen, it will give you the options. I'll explain in a minute, okay? Final Fantasy VII Remake Digital Deluxe Edition for PlayStation 4. So, these are different options. If you own the PlayStation 4 version, the best version of the game, and if you have the PlayStation 5, the best option is this one. And I'll tell you why. If you click on it, I'm going to read down here for a second here. Now that you are here, look for the three dots again, click on it. It will bring the menu that you see before you. There are many options. One of them is Final Fantasy VII Remake Upgrade for PS4 owners. Click on that, start downloading, and the start downloading, and the file size should come out to 8173 gigabytes. That's a lot smaller than the PlayStation 4 version. Now, that doesn't mean you ditch the PlayStation 4 play disc. No. You are going to use that disc to play the PlayStation 5 version. That's a beautiful upgrade path. I don't know why many developers are not using this path. Most cross-gen games are basically the disc and the redeemable code. So basically, you're buying two games, which is two. Okay? So that is what this review is going to be based on. This is the full review of Final Fantasy VII Remake on PlayStation 5. So, yeah, that's what this review is based on. So, when you download the game for PlayStation 4, upgrade it to PlayStation 5, the files are the same, but the way that PlayStation 5 works is that the files are like touching the SSD. So in other words, every time you when you load between games, like let's say you're in one area and you're about to go to the next area, that next area, when you're in between, the console loads the actual files like this. If you saw the PlayStation 5 version of Spider-Man early on, it shows the loading times. Okay, so I'll reference this in the next video, but for now, I'm just saying what's going on. And when you actually finish downloading the actual game on PlayStation 5, the upgrades come with the files. So you're getting the full Final Fantasy VII experience on PlayStation 5 because of the redundancies that are in the PlayStation 4 version. Okay? So it's basically upgrading the frame rate, for example. It's cleaning up the textures, it's cleaning up the rough edges, and from the PlayStation 5 console, it looks a lot cleaner than the PlayStation 4 version. They're both the same game. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But the thing is, the PlayStation 5 version is so clean that they cleaned a lot of the issues that existed on the PlayStation 4 version. And that same goes for the PC version. I have not experienced the PC version, but I would argue that after the release of the PlayStation 4 version, they cleaned up a lot of the bugs, they cleaned up a lot of the frame rate issues, they cleaned up a lot of the glitches. I saw a little bit of glitches in the PlayStation 4 version, but it's not something that I go like, hey, Square Enix, what is wrong with you guys? No. It's just small stuff that you just forget about it and later you just But they cleaned it up. Okay? And a lot of the cuts in and out, they're smoother now. You don't even notice the loading times. You don't even notice what's going on in the actual game. Alright, so this review is also like a context to the next 5-10 videos down, I guess, because I'm working on doing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I have a second channel. You guys can go in there and check it out. I'm trying to finish the game, and so that's what this review is gonna have the context to. I will link the review down there so you guys can read it for yourself. But this is my opinion. Okay. As far as the technology stuff is concerned, I'm gonna talk about it on the next video. This is just setting everything up. Thank you very much. Let's get going. Alright, gameplay. Alright, so before we talk about gameplay, I'm gonna do contrasting description of what you're playing. So in Final Fantasy 16, you are playing Clive throughout the whole game, but you have AI characters playing alongside you, which is good. This is nice. But here's the contrasting part. From time to time, you play as Clive alone. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, you have AI characters. The main character of Final Fantasy VII Remake is Cloud. And that will permeate throughout the whole game. However, in Final Fantasy VII Remake, you get to control the AI characters in addition to Cloud. Sometimes you'll play as Barret, sometimes you'll play as Aerith, sometimes you'll play as Tifa, sometimes you'll play as Red X13. The original Final Fantasy VII Remake was a turn-based role-playing game. So the developers of Final Fantasy VII Remake tried to merge that idea with an action game. Just so happens, Square Enix experimented with a game called Kingdom Hearts to arrive at this juncture of merging ideas of role-playing games with action-oriented gameplay. The game sanitizes you to understand how they want you to play Final Fantasy VII Remake by forming or grooming your ideas as to how the gameplay is played. Early on, your battles are easy, but progressively it gets harder and harder as you learn to switch characters as needed. So every time you switch between characters, you learn how to take to give distraction to one character against the other character. Okay? So if you're playing as Cloud and the enemy is trying to attack you, you can switch to the other character, and that enemy is going to focus on that character. So you get to be able to like switch on the fly, and like cure players, characters. And when you do that, you can like attack the enemy as a different character, while the other character is able to like cure your main character. You would have to play the game to understand what I'm talking about here. So I'll give you an example here for a second here. Do not think that Final Fantasy VII is purely an action game. No, it is a pure action RPG. When they merge the ideas of action games, action slash with role-playing game ideals, where you would be able to upgrade your characters. You can even upgrade your characters, your equipment, and materia, marbles with powers, magic, and abilities. You can continue your attacks. You can combine your attacks with your weapons, your equipment, your materials, skills, magic, abilities, and combos all together. You can summon to use on the battlefield. Magic even counters their magic too. Fire against ice, that sort of thing. Each character has a weakness. There's a video here, but I'm not sure about YouTube's compression, so I'm gonna show you an example here. Give me a second here. This is a final boss battle, and I'll talk about this a little later. Okay? Okay? Crisp, right?
Let's finish this. Fate is not to be taken lightly.
I'm gonna move a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about here. Hold on here. Alright. Here is where the switch comes in. No, I see Cloud. Right here. Now, as you can see, I'm playing as Aerith, right? And I'm trying to give him like a cure. Watch what happens here. She goes away. The character goes over there. I mean, Sephiroth goes over there. But I'm right behind him. And I'm able to do the limit. That's what we have in Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'll come back to this a little later. So, hold up here. Give me 1 second here. So that's how the gameplay switches from character to character and what you can do in that scenario. Okay, so difficulty, much like Final Fantasy 16, Final Fantasy VII Remake starts off slow. Try to sanitize you into learning how to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. I played on normal. I'm an average player, but most casual will either choose easy or normal if they're feeling bold. Either way, the game starts off easy, but as you level up and progress further into Final Fantasy VII Remake, however, Final Fantasy VII Remake is linear. I'm sorry, Square Enix, but it's true. Final Fantasy VII Remake is pretty linear. It has a poor pacing issue. And and there's nothing wrong with being linear. It's just that the pacing when you go from one area to the next, there's like a gap in sometimes. But to be fair, it has been fixed in Rebirth. I'll talk about it later. Okay, so it has poor pacing issue that doesn't climax until at least level 15 through 20, where bosses start to get tougher. Once you've arrived to Shinra's headquarters, things start to pick up, and you'll need to use all of your attacks, skills, defensive and offensive maneuvers. Story. Final Fantasy VII Remake's story starts off with a bang from the get-go, and the bigger storyline comes into view 5 chapters into Final Fantasy VII Remake. There is not one story, but there are about 3 storylines that start off and grows from there. Cloud is this mercenary that slowly but surely falls in love with Tifa and then later Aerith. There's this dynamic between Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa. He pretends to like not care, but he does. And I say it here. Hold on here. Tifa is sort of dating, is a mom to Marlene and or married to Barrett or dating Barrett, I guess. I don't know. It's not explicitly said in the game itself, but it is like implied, if that makes sense. Okay, so, but Cloud acts like he's not interested in either Tifa or Aerith. Later on, you meet Red 13, who is an experiment of Shinra. You meet Rashi in the middle of at least chapter 5, but you never see him again until, I don't know. You never see him in this story arc, though. Okay? Then you meet more characters, and it all climaxes at Shinra's headquarters, where you'll learn about his experiments and the corruption of Midgar, corruption of the slums, and the deep-seated politics of Shinra. The final battles centers around Sephiroth, crescendos at the last minute. Okay? Controls. For the most part, Final Fantasy VII Remake controls like a basic action RPG that has a deep battle system. Every time you change your equipment and or weapons, your combos are different. Your stance is different. There are two buttons for attacks, and there's one for switching characters. There's one button for changing stances. There's 4 buttons for selecting items / abilities like a traditional RPG. The controls feel good once you wrap your head around the concept, wrap your head around the controls. I'll go deeper into the user interface. Hold on, give me, okay. Graphics. Final Fantasy VII Remake's graphics is where the game shines the most. If you've been watching Final Fantasy films up until now, you'll know what to expect from Final Fantasy. The original Final Fantasy VII used pre-rendered CGI, computer-generated imagery for storytelling. From a technical standpoint, the CGI was recorded like a full motion video, FMV. Nowadays, video games has in-game cutscenes, and for the most part, the game presents the story from the in-game engine. For the most part, they look almost CGI, and I'll talk about it in 1 second, okay? So they don't care how it looks, and they shouldn't, because in my opinion, Final Fantasy VII Remake got close enough to Final Fantasy VII's CGI visuals. The only CGI used in Final Fantasy VII Remake are the ones that show off graphical prowess. You'll see this during the escape from upper slums in Midgar. The second one is the final scene of Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's the Midgar chase. You can look at it and down there in the description if you want to. YouTube's compression is kind of weird. I'm not gonna use it here. Okay. Alright. User interface. For the most part, the user interface is simple yet complex. As stated in the controls section, the user interface allows for freedom into customizing your characters. You can upgrade your characters via upgrading your character's weapons. You can upgrade your magic or abilities by slotting something called materia. As I said before, materia is more sort of like a marble. That little marble that holds power, magic, or abilities. The weapon menus doesn't apparently show the changes in game. You'll have to slot your weapons into your character so the changes are apparent in the battlefield of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So when you slot in your weapons to your character, your character's moves are different than the ones that you previously used. Tifa, for example, will have the most apparent moveset per new equipment. This is her gloves. It allows her to move in such a way that is different from the last moveset. Music and sound is another place where Final Fantasy VII Remake shines. Final Fantasy VII Remake has some of the most epic musical scores, especially towards the end. The musical score starts out slow, but it does pick up. The sounds are loud and is supported by the musical score. All I gotta say for this spot, pro tip, crank that volume up to almost maximum if you're able to. If you have surround sound, all the better. Fantastic music and sounds. Fantastic. Replay value. Final Fantasy VII Remake is not technically an open world game, but rather a open quadrant game. Final Fantasy VII Remake has pacing issues because it's more of a linear game than this open quadrant game. Now, don't get me wrong, there are open quadrant spots, but there isn't much backtracking or go here missions in Final Fantasy. Go here missions like Final Fantasy 16. There's some side missions, but they're secluded to the open quadrant locations. For example, in the slums, you can do the missions in the area, and they are like real life missions. You go here, you go there, you do this, you do that. You talk to people, and then so on and on and on. There is a replay value, but to be sure, but the issue is that there is a bit of a pacing issue, which I've been saying for a while now. The only saving grace for Final Fantasy VII Remake is the world that it inhabits. The graphics are great. It supports the world around you in Final Fantasy VII Remake. It all comes together in this beautiful game. My verdict is Final Fantasy VII Remake is a gem that generated a lot of hype before release, and likewise got consumed by many people. Every part of the game clicks together to make the game look like a movie or a film. Everything from controls, music, gameplay, story, and most importantly, graphics make Final Fantasy VII Remake a dream game. What knocks Final Fantasy VII Remake from being scored 85 is simple. The replay value is sorely lacking. The fact that it's linear knocks it down a bit more. There are three large issues. Replay value is low because of the size of the open quadrant. Pacing is a bit poor, and the linear progression in gameplay into story. To be fair, there is a sequel in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is actually the second disc in the original Final Fantasy VII game. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth isn't a traditional sequel, it is the second disc. 75 to 100. In other words, it's a pretty good game, just sorely lacking in some places. It's not perfect. And it sold pretty well. Just that some people are stupid. Some people are really stupid. Let me tell you why. Hold on here. Give me a second here. Some people call Final Fantasy VII Remake ugly. Yeah, we're talking about this thing right here. Just listen to that.
It's your turn.
Need to heal up.
All this is from my PlayStation 5. And they say it's ugly. On this video, yes. Yes. It's on my second channel. They said this is ugly.
Here he comes. This one's for you. I can help too.
Listen to that.
No big deal. Just a little mishap.
Listen.
Don't overdo it.
I'll show you what I can do. Why don't you lead the
Let's do
way?
this.
Beautiful. And they call it ugly.
Deal with that.
Here goes. Okay.
I got this.
All right, so I'll let it play for a little bit. That's all for this video. Stay tuned for the new PlayStation 5 review. I'll get to this soon. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, like, share, comment, subscribe, follow, talk about CarlosX360. I'll see you guys later. Stay awesome. Toodles.